In the mid-'80s, we had good success in San Jose. It was one of the better manufacturing facilities in IBM. We got a new manager, came from Armonk, which is the headquarters of IBM. And he was an old-timer. But he decided that San Jose needed some recognition. So in 1984, he arranged for some key people to join the 100% Club, which was always held for the salespeople around the country. And the one in California was held in San Francisco, and invited us to join them. He held a luncheon for just the San Jose people, where he gave out some significant awards. I was fortunate. He gave me $50,000. That money was used in two ways. I bought Wilma a new diamond ring, which was beautiful. And then we took the rest of that money and bought a cabin in Tahoe. Tahoe was a good experience. My secretary at that time and her boyfriend owned the cabin in Tahoe. They wanted to sell it to come to San Jose and buy a house in San Jose. So we just negotiated the price and they gave us the keys. So we got the cabin in Tahoe for $84,000 with all the furnishings and everything in the cabin. It was wonderful because during the late 80s, we could go to Tahoe on the weekends. I could leave work Friday afternoons, spend the weekend in Tahoe, and come back Monday morning. Wilma loved it. She loved the casinos. She loved to play bingo in the casinos, and she also loved to play the slot machines. So Saturday was her day to be at the casinos, and I would work on the cabin, and then Saturday night we would go out and have a good dinner in Tahoe. One of the things that happened in Tahoe, when I was working on the roof, she was holding the ladder, and I always kidded her later on because I fell off the roof. And I told her she was supposed to catch me, but she didn't. Well, I was lucky. I spent a year in a brace with my back, but it healed up good. Later on, in 1984, China opened up for visitors. Before that, you couldn't visit China. And so we were both interested in China and wanted to go there early. So we took a trip with our friends. The lab manager's name was Jim Lucky and his wife Carol. So we went off to Japan first. We had business. Jim and I had business in Japan. We flew to Tokyo, did our business. While we were working, Carol and Wilma went on the Inland Sea tour to Hiroshima, which is where the first atomic bomb was dropped in Japan. So that was interesting from them. They then came back to Tokyo, and we went on to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we arranged to have a tour of China, which was interesting. Oh, that's from Thailand. Amazing what you could collect over there in 3 years, having that 40-foot container to come home with. This is, those are Yadros. That's my Japanese self. Okay.
Where?
These girls here are all Japanese.
Uh-huh.
Okay. This owl was, Lisa got it in Montana. She got 2 of them like that. She knows the painter. But then this is Swarovski, which is a crystal manufacturer. These are mostly from Stockholm. Mostly owls. You'll find owls every place. This is Orifers out of Sweden. This cat is out of Paris. We were in, well actually we bought it in New York. That's a Waterford crystal. Those 2 horses are all Yadros. This is a Chinese special porcelain, very thin. These are that's from China. That's from Stockholm. Oh, that's just an elephant. That's my 25th from IBM. They gave you a award. You could pick silverware or clock or whatever. It needs to be cleaned. But then these are Chinese. They're bottles, perfume bottles that are painted from the inside. So it's amazing to watch the people paint them. You know. And then behind it is Chinese figures from Yadro. This is one of my famous ones. This is the Flower Lady from Yadro. These are crystal from Stockholm. This was my first trip to Stockholm. I bought this owl for Ma, and then later on I bought another one. And then down here is this is Korea to shelf. Okay, all of the, well, except for the one in the back there are all from Korea. The one in the back is pewter, and that's from Malaysia. Those clowns up on top are Yadros.
Thank you, Wayne.
So you got pictures in the bedroom, and most of that those shelves in there, again, all represent our travels. A lot of Yadros and different things from different places, okay? So they all got a story behind them. We went from Hong Kong to a city about an hour away from Beijing. We flew there. We had no tour guide. but we had about 8 people on a tour. We landed in Tianjin. When we got off the plane, we went through a line of armed soldiers, which was a little intimidating. But then we got our tour guide, went into the city. Tianjin was about 3 million people, and they had had a large earthquake earlier, so most of the people were in high-rise apartments. But part of the tour guide, they arranged a session with the manager of the building where all the people were living, which again was kind of interesting because at that time his main information was to tell us how they watched all the people. All the people in China at that time had someone watching them, which was kind of new to us. But it was interesting, and the little children, they did a little act for us. And we found out that the school-age children had to take their chairs from home to school. They carried them back and forth because the school had no chairs. So we had a good time in China. Wilma really loved it because there were very few cars, lots of bicycles. All the mothers had their children on the bicycles. And obviously they were interested in us, that they wanted to stop and talk. And so they would stop, and all of a sudden you would have 100 kids around you, which Wilma loved. One time they were all on bicycles, and there was this one man that was selling little bars and things, candy for the kids. And so Wilma took advantage of that. She purchased the whole bag of everything he had and was passing them all out to the kids, which again was very nice and very enjoyable. We went to Beijing. The hotel was pretty crude, but it was livable. So we then saw all the normal tourist things, went to the Great Wall, and saw the Hall of the People and all of the various tourist things in Beijing. When it came time to leave, the tour guide had to go to the airport to arrange for our transportation for our airlines. Jim and I convinced him that we didn't want to go with him because it was going to take 2 or 3 hours for him to do it. And so he arranged a special tour for us of the Hall of the People, which was really a royal tour. The Hall of the People at that time, and still is, where all of the various provinces of China display all of their best art and products from their province. So we got a royal tour, which later on, when we went to China, I took a number of, and Wilma took a number of our guests to the Hall of the People, and we never got a tour like that. So we then came back to Hong Kong and flew home back to California. So we spent the last 4 or 5 years working in San Jose. I spent my evenings working on the landscaping and doing all the work outside after work. See, what you'll see from photographs was that this was all flat, right?
Right.
And so I dug all this out, and
Did you lay the bricks as well?
oh yeah, all the brickwork is mine.
Man of many talents.
Is that?
I said a man of many talents.
Well, what I've always said is you can do anything if you take your time and you know, belonging to workshop clubs and, you know,
Oh, okay.
that type of thing.
So you were the workshop club.
Oh yeah. We used to have a good flea market here in Morgan Hill, and so practically all my tools are used. There's 2 or 3 new ones in there, but most of them were used that I bought at the flea market.
What about the landscape? You planted all the trees and stuff
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, and the shrubs.
Yep, did everything. I started with grass back here,
Uh huh.
but I didn't want to fence it, and the deer kind of tore it up, and so I went to stones, and the stones have been great. Now you got the pigs, you know. And,
Uh-huh.
They don't dig the stones, so I'll end up in the front yard when I landscape it. Now I'll use more natural landscaping instead of grass.
I see.
Then in late 1989, I had told my IBM management that I wanted to spend my last 3 years of my career overseas. And we were ready to go to Mainz, Germany on assignment for 3 years. Wilma was a little skeptical because she didn't know any foreign language, and really German is tough to learn. So a gentleman came from Hong Kong and offered me a job in Hong Kong as an international procurement manager. I really didn't know what that was, but it was kind of a retirement job. It was going to be an 8-hour job. And Wilma wanted to go because she loved Hong Kong. We'd gone there a number of times in our travels. And she liked it because the British were in charge of Hong Kong, and English was the predominant language. So it was very easy. So in beginning of 1990, we packed up to go to Hong Kong for 3 years. It was kind of interesting because they wanted us in Hong Kong, and they only allowed us to take our bed, a couch, and my favorite lazy boy chair, because they were going to fly it over. So when we arrived in Hong Kong, we stayed in a hotel, and it was a little different in Hong Kong now because we visited a number of times, but we had to prepare to live there. IBM was very good to us. First thing we did is went house hunting, found an apartment. It was a 2,200 square foot apartment, but completely empty. So we had to stay in the hotel until they renovated the apartment, got it all ready for us to move in. IBM gave us an allowance to buy furniture to furnish that entire apartment. That included drapes, carpeting on the floor, and all the furnishings that you needed for an apartment. IBM was very good to us in Hong Kong. As I mentioned, we had very little furniture to start with. We found a good apartment. It was a beautiful apartment. In Hong Kong, there's two sides to Hong Kong. One is Hong Kong Island, and the other is Kowloon. Kowloon is mainly for the tourists, where Hong Kong Island is where all the rich people live. So we had an apartment that was about halfway up the hill in Hong Kong that had a beautiful view of the harbor. And we immediately went out and started to buy furniture. So the allowance that we got from IBM allowed us to completely furnish a 2,200 square foot apartment. This furniture was, these two chairs and the couches came from Hong Kong. It was from our apartment in Hong Kong.
This is the stuff you took Wilma to pick out when you didn't have no furniture?
Right, exactly. We picked all this out.
Got it.
And because IBM gave us a 40-foot container to come home with, so we just brought it home and furnished downstairs. So we got off to a good start. Wilma loved to shop. In Hong Kong, there was two things that you shopped for. You shopped for a lot of the clothing and goodies, and at the same time you shopped for jewelry, and she did both. I started my job as a procurement manager. I had about 20 people. They all spoke Chinese, and all of our vendors, most of them, were in China. So when we would go to China to visit these vendors, someone would always go with me, so I didn't have to speak Chinese. The vendors were producing parts for the IBM manufacturing plants in the US. So our job was to negotiate contracts and control the quality and all of those things to make sure that the parts coming to IBM were good. We had a procurement office which was under different management in Korea, another one in Taiwan, and another one in Singapore. Our headquarters were in Tokyo, so that allowed me to travel around to the other IPO sites as well as going to headquarters. After about 2 years, or a year and a half, IBM decided that they would have a joint venture with China to make IBM PCs. That joint venture was in Tianjin, which was the city that I had visited when I visited China. It was interesting for me because it allowed me to kind of get back into manufacturing a little bit. I went to Fishkill, New York, IBM, hired an engineer there who had grown up in Taiwan, so he spoke fluent Chinese. His wife was a chemical engineer, So we settled them in Tianjin, and he ran the joint venture, the PC joint venture. We really weren't very successful at that time because we had to get all of our parts for quality reasons from Australia, and so we could never really be competitive in the marketplace. Most of our PCs would go to the universities, as China was just getting started with PCs in the universities. But it was a good experience and a lot of fun. One of the things that it was good that we had an apartment. It had 3 bedrooms, and so we had an awful lot of visitors come visit us from the U.S. Some of them were IBMers, some were like her best friend I mentioned earlier, Bev. She came quite often because she had connections with the airlines, that one of her aunts or something worked for the airlines so she could get free tickets. Unfortunately, they always had to fly when there was space available. So that was great when she would come, but when she was about to leave, a number of times she would go to the airport and we'd think she was leaving, but the airline was full, and so therefore she would have to come home and wait for another flight. But Wilma became a real tour guide. She was very comfortable in China. She felt very safe. And so she would, there was one place that they would always go was where the Takata warriors were. That was a special place in China where one of the earlier emperors had buried an army of soldiers, which included horses and, but they were made out of Takata. The feeling was that when he died, he would have an army to take care of him. And they had uncovered that, which is a world-famous place, and it was a great place to take the tourists and easy to get to. So I say, Wilma became a real tour guide, and she loved to shop. We were able to come home a number of times with my business, with IBM, and we would find arrangements for her to buy a good cheap tickets to come home. In 1993, we had to come back to Sue's, her sister, in New York because her oldest son had died in an accident. So we flew back to New York and spent a week with her, which was a good break getting away from Hong Kong.
Feels like something tore my spirit, left it scattered on the floor. I'd rather hold on to a lie than face the truth of goodbye once more. Lord, I'm looking for a little help tonight. I promise I'll pay it back somehow. Yeah, I'm looking for a little somehow. My heart's full of old memories of you newly born in my arms. Lost inside these questions now, trying to keep us safe from harm. Where do I put all this confusion when some parts cut to the bone? Seclusion answers like cold shadows and leaves me here all alone. Time may always heal someone broken, but I'm knowing it's gonna be hard as hell. Lord, I'm looking for a little help tonight. I promise I'll pay it back, I promise I will. Good Lord, I'm looking for some help.